My name's Jacob, and I haven't worked nights since what happened to me in the spring of 2022. For a while, I told myself it was just paranoia, stress, or the product of too many horror podcasts on long drives. But deep down, I know what I saw, and what almost happened to me was real. I used to deliver for a small courier service in rural Michigan, the kind of side gig you pick up when you've dropped out of college twice and need money to cover rent in a crummy apartment. I'd do anything: groceries, legal documents, even medical supplies. Mostly, though, it was random packages at weird hours, often to houses miles from the next living soul. I didn't really mind it at first. I'd always preferred night. There's a quietness to empty back roads, a kind of insulation from everything that's too loud or too busy about daytime. That spring, I was working 5 nights a week, picking up shifts no one else wanted. My sleep schedule was a mess. Sometimes I'd go days without seeing anyone but my neighbor's Tabby when I got home in the morning. My girlfriend at the time was long distance and we were barely hanging on. She hated my hours, hated how I'd text her at 3:30 a.m. and then vanish all day. Maybe that's part of why I didn't talk to anyone about what happened at first. It just felt easier to lock it away, pretend it hadn't happened at all. The night it all started, I'd already had 3 drop-offs. It was drizzling, the kind of cold rain that creeps under your collar and soaks the seats if you leave your window cracked. Every delivery that night had been in a different direction, and by midnight I was exhausted and hungry, my stomach turning over cold gas station coffee and a stale donut from 6 hours earlier. I was ready to go home. Then my phone vibrated. 1 new delivery. Priority. The payout was double normal rates. I hesitated, but rent was due soon, so I swiped accept. All it said was a house number, a pinned location somewhere way past the edge of the county. The delivery note: leave at front door, do not knock, do not ring bell. No contact name, no tip. I should have turned it down. I wish I had. But I figured, what's the worst that can happen? People out here are weird about privacy, especially in these deep country houses. I convinced myself it'd be fine. I drove for what felt like forever, the GPS signal flickering in and out. The roads narrowed from 2 lanes to 1, then from pavement to rough gravel. Fog drifted across the fields, swallowing up the world outside my high beams. Every so often I'd spot a mailbox or a distant light, always just out of reach. My phone buzzed once, then again. GPS signal lost, recalculating route. I cursed under my breath, knuckles white on the wheel. Eventually, I found the mailbox. No numbers, just a rusted tin thing, dented and leaning, half swallowed by weeds. The house was invisible from the road, just the suggestion of a roofline, the faintest reflection of light on glass. The driveway was more like a tunnel, trees arching overhead so close, the branches clawed at my van's sides. My chest tightened as I pulled in. There were no lights on inside the house. Not even a porch light, just the dim, yellow glow of my headlights painting jagged shadows on the siding. I grabbed the padded envelope from the passenger seat, more out of habit than anything, and stepped out into the wet silence. It was so quiet I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I remember the smell: damp earth, rotting leaves, something faint and metallic underneath. I hurried up the porch steps, trying not to let the boards creak, and left the envelope on a water-stained welcome mat. I took my phone out to snap a photo for proof, but just as I hit the shutter, the screen blinked and went black. Battery dead. Of course. I stood there for a second, phone in hand, shivering in the drizzle. The woods pressed in from every side. I told myself to just go. That's when I saw the barn. At first it looked like a shed, but as my eyes adjusted, I could see it was much bigger. A classic red barn, set maybe 30 yards behind the house, door hanging half open. Just enough to see inside, but not enough to see what was there. I couldn't say why, but I felt like I was being watched. My scalp prickled, like cold fingers brushing my hair. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe the owner was inside watching me through a window, wondering why some delivery guy was poking around their property at 1:30 in the morning. but the feeling wouldn't shake. The air was heavy. My skin crawled. I stepped off the porch, glancing back at the barn. That's when I saw it. A silhouette just inside the open door. Not moving, not waving, just there. Tall, thin, arms at its sides. The outline was too sharp to be a pile of tools or bales of hay. I blinked, and it didn't disappear. I forced myself to walk calmly back to the van, hands shaking as I unlocked the door. I slid in and slammed the locks down. My heart was pounding so loud I thought the person, thing, whatever it was, would hear it. I started the van, relief flooding through me as the engine caught. I turned around, ready to back out, and that's when I saw a face in the second-story window of the house. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light. An actual face, pale, almost gray, with sunken eyes and hair hanging loose and damp. It was looking straight at me. I froze, hands hovering over the wheel, breath fogging up the windshield. And then it smiled. Not a happy smile, not a welcome, just a thin, stretched mouth, as if it was savoring something only it understood. I jerked my gaze away, jammed the van into reverse, and sped down the driveway, mud spraying up behind me. I didn't check the mirrors. I didn't breathe until I hit the main road. I thought I was safe. I turned back onto the county road, trying to tell myself I was being stupid, that my eyes were playing tricks. But then, in the rear view, headlights flickered to life at the end of the driveway. A truck, old and boxy, its grills snarling in the dark. It pulled out behind me, slow at first, then faster. I punched the gas. The van fishtailed, gravel spitting up under the tires. The truck kept pace, headlights cutting through the fog, never getting closer, never dropping back. Just following. No matter how many turns I made, how many times I doubled back or took random side roads, it was always there. Once, I cut off my headlights and turned onto a logging trail, thinking maybe I could lose them. But a minute later, the truck appeared at the trail's end, blocking the way out. I nearly lost control. My hands were slick with sweat, my heart beating so fast I felt dizzy. I tried to call 911, but my phone was still dead. For a second, I wondered if this was how people vanished out here, just swallowed by the woods, never seen again. I did the only thing I could. I floored it, barreling down the trail, the van scraping branches and bouncing over roots. Somehow, I made it back to the main road. I didn't see the truck in the mirror anymore. Not at first. A few miles later, I saw lights ahead. A gas station, fluorescent lights harsh and artificial. I pulled in, parked right in front of the windows, and killed the engine. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get my phone to charge. The kid behind the counter stared as I stumbled inside, mumbling something about being followed. He called the cops, but by the time they arrived, the truck was gone. No sign of it on the cameras, no tire tracks, nothing. The officer took my statement, eyes wary but skeptical. He said I probably spooked a local, maybe trespassed on someone's property without realizing it. People get twitchy out here, he said, voice casual, but I could see he didn't believe me. Try to stick to daylight deliveries. I went home and tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face in the window, that smile. The next night I had a nightmare. I was back at the house, standing on the porch, my feet rooted to the boards. The door opened slowly, and the face leaned out, impossibly long arms reaching for me, voice whispering my name. I woke up choking, the taste of iron in my mouth. I called off work the next day, then the day after that. My boss was pissed, but I didn't care. I started keeping a bat in my van, pepper spray in my jacket. I quit night deliveries for good. A few weeks later, I got curious and tried to look up the house on Google Maps. Street view just showed trees, no driveway, no mailbox, no house. I asked some old-timers at a local diner, but nobody recognized the address. One woman, a waitress with tired eyes, listened to my story and went pale. "You shouldn't have gone down there," she whispered. "Some places out here, they don't want to be found. Sometimes they find you instead." The package I delivered? I never found out what was in it. My boss said the client left a review, 5 stars, Driver was respectful, but the job disappeared from my account the day after, like it never happened. About 2 months later, I was on my way home from the grocery store when I noticed a car in my rear view. An old, battered truck, paint flaking, grill snarling. My blood went cold. I turned off, took the long way home, but the truck followed. It stayed behind me until I reached the highway. Then, as soon as I passed a busy intersection, it vanished. 1 second there, the next, gone. I barely slept that night, half expecting to see a pale face in my window or hear footsteps outside my door. Nothing happened. But every so often I get that feeling again, like something's watching me, waiting. I see flashes of headlights in my mirrors where there shouldn't be any, or I'll catch a glimpse of a face in a second-story window, long after midnight. I moved to the city a year later, found a new job, tried to leave it all behind. But sometimes, when I can't sleep, I'll think about that house in the woods, that smiling face, the truck that never seemed to stop following. I wonder what would have happened if I'd knocked on the door or gone into the barn or tried to talk to whoever or whatever was inside. I hope I never find out. But deep down, I worry it isn't finished with me. And if you ever get a late-night delivery to a place you've never heard of, a house the GPS can barely find, don't stop, don't get out of the car, just keep driving, and pray you never see that smile. I'll start by saying I never believed in ghosts. Not really. I grew up in suburban Illinois, about as normal as it gets. I'm a nurse now, used to weird night shifts and long hours, and I always thought stories about haunted houses were just people scaring themselves in the dark. That changed the summer after my mom died. It was just me and my younger sister Megan left to sort through her house. She'd lived there since I was in high school, a 2-story Victorian on the edge of a sleepy town, painted yellow with a sagging porch and a yard that hadn't been mowed in months. Mom had always loved antiques, and the place was full of her old furniture, books, clocks that never kept time. It was July, humid, miserable, the kind of heat that sticks to your skin and makes every room feel like it's been closed up for years. We had a week to box up the house before the new buyers moved in. Megan and I figured it'd be bittersweet, maybe a little sad, but not scary, just a job to get through. The first night we were too tired to drive home, so we stayed in my old bedroom upstairs. Megan got the bed. I took an air mattress by the window. The air was thick and unmoving, the only sound an old box fan rattling in the hallway. I lay awake, half listening to it whir, staring at the pale strip of moonlight on the floor. Every house has its own noises, but this place felt louder somehow. Creaks and pops, the tick of an old clock, the wind slipping under the eaves. I woke up sometime after 2 a.m. to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Not the house settling, actual footsteps, slow, measured, moving toward our room. I froze, listening, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would wake Megan. For a second I wondered if someone had broken in, but the steps were too soft, too careful. They stopped right outside the door. I waited, barely breathing. Nothing. No knock, no creak of the door, just silence. I got up the nerve to peek into the hallway. It was empty, the air so still I could smell the old wallpaper glue, the musty tang of closed-up rooms. I chalked it up to nerves and exhaustion and went back to bed. The next morning, Megan asked if I'd been walking around. She said she'd heard footsteps outside the room, then something like whispering. It sounded like Mom, she said, then forced a laugh, as if saying it out loud would make it less weird. We brushed it off, grief, memories, old house noises, but it kept happening. The second night, we both heard someone walking downstairs after midnight. Not just walking, moving from room to room, stopping, then starting again. Sometimes there'd be a sharp tapping, like someone knocking gently on the walls. Megan suggested maybe it was a raccoon in the walls or something. We never saw anything, but every morning we'd find little things out of place. A lamp switched on, an old book left open on the kitchen table. The front door, which I'd locked and double-checked, slightly ajar. By the third night, we were on edge. The house felt wrong, colder somehow, even in the heat. We tried to distract ourselves by cleaning, packing boxes, playing music. I'd walk past a mirror and catch a flicker of movement behind me, a shape, a face, something just out of view. Once, while taping up a box in the dining room, I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck, like someone standing just behind me. I spun around, but the room was empty. That night, we both agreed to sleep in the living room, close to the front door, with every light on. Sometime after midnight, Megan shook me awake, her face pale, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then, faintly, I caught it. A soft humming, like a lullaby. It drifted down the stairs, just barely audible over the fan. Megan was trembling. "That's Mom's song," she whispered, "the one she used to sing when we were little." We lay there, holding hands, too scared to move. The humming grew louder, closer, then faded away. The room felt icy, the air pressing down on us. When the sun came up, we decided to pack as much as we could and get out. We'd come back with friends, in daylight. I was in the upstairs hallway, filling a box with old photographs, when I heard Megan scream from the kitchen. I ran down and found her standing by the old oak table, staring at a piece of paper. It was a note, in our mom's handwriting. Only, it was dated that day, and the words were not quite right. Just our names, over and over, with "come home" scrawled at the bottom. Megan started to cry, and I felt something shift in the room, a drop in temperature. The air buzzing like a wasp was trapped inside my ear. The light above us flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. I grabbed Megan's arm and we ran outside, leaving the door wide open behind us. We sat on the front porch, shaking, until we could breathe again. Neither of us wanted to go back in, but we had to. Our phones, our keys, everything was still inside. I steeled myself and stepped through the door. The house was silent, almost peaceful. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself we'd imagined it all. We packed up our things and left. I locked the door behind me, checking twice, then a third time. That was the last night we ever stayed in that house. A week later, the new owners moved in, a young couple with a toddler. I warned them, tried to hint at what we'd experienced without sounding insane. They smiled politely, probably thinking I was just another seller with cold feet. 2 months after that, Megan called me late one night. She'd been reading the local Facebook group. The new owners were looking for information. Had anyone else noticed strange noises, footsteps, cold spots in the house? Their daughter kept talking about the lady who sings upstairs. Sometimes they'd find toys moved in the night or the back door unlocked in the morning. Megan wanted to go back, try to help. I told her absolutely not. It's been 3 years. The house is still standing. The couple moved out after less than a year. It's empty now, the paint peeling, the yard overgrown. Every so often I'll drive past on my way to work and catch a glimpse of a figure in the upstairs window. Pale, unmoving, watching. Sometimes, on especially hot nights, I'll wake up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway of my apartment. I tell myself it's just my mind playing tricks, but I keep a light on, just in case, and I haven't listened to a lullaby since. I've moved 6 times in the last 10 years. And if you ask anyone who knows me, they'll say it's because I'm restless, or that I can't seem to settle down. The truth is, I'm being followed, and not by an ex or by anyone you could get a restraining order against. I wish it were that simple. My name's Eliza. I'm 32 now, and I've lived all over. Small towns, cities, basements, third-floor walk-ups, even a converted farmhouse for a while. It doesn't matter where I go or how far I move. The same thing always finds me. I don't know what it is. Ghost, spirit, presence. Pick your word. I've tried all the labels, but none of them really fit. I just call it him. That's how it feels. A male presence. Always there, just at the edge of the room, in the next mirror, down the hall, watching, waiting. The first time I remember something happening, I was in college, living in an ancient brick dorm. It started with little things, my keys going missing, textbooks shifting off my desk, the lamp flickering every time I sat down to study. My roommate joked the place was haunted, but I just rolled my eyes and blamed old wiring and my own stress. But then I started hearing footsteps late at night. They'd stop right outside my door, sometimes pacing back and forth, other times just standing there. Once I heard a low humming, almost like a man clearing his throat, except it never got louder or quieter, it just stayed, hovering on the edge of hearing. No one else seemed to notice. If I asked, people said, old buildings make noises. But it always felt targeted. Things got worse after I moved off campus. I rented a tiny one-bedroom in a run-down house. The first night, while unpacking, my radio turned on by itself, full volume, blaring static. I chalked it up to bad wiring, but when I unplugged it, the static kept going for another 30 seconds before cutting out with a high-pitched screech. I laughed it off, but inside I felt a cold, sinking dread. It's always like that. Little things, almost playful, at first. I'll find all the cabinet doors in my kitchen wide open, no matter how many times I close them. The shower will turn on by itself, sometimes in the middle of the night. Once, I found all my socks lined up on the floor, toe to heel, like someone had spent hours arranging them just so. Sometimes I'll catch glimpses, reflections in a TV screen, or the shimmer of movement in the corner of a mirror. Always tall, always dark, never clear enough to see a face, but always enough to make my heart pound. I've tried everything: sage, crystals, prayers. Friends have come over to bless my place or light candles. It never helps. The thing never leaves. It just gets bored and tries something new. When I moved to Chicago, I thought maybe I'd lose him in the noise. Big city, lots of people, constant movement. But the very first night in my new apartment, I woke to the sound of someone breathing right next to my ear. Loud, raspy, as if someone was standing over me inches from my face. I turned on the lamp and the room was empty, but my breath came out in little white clouds. The air had gone freezing cold in seconds, just in the spot where I slept. That was the first time I considered leaving. But where would I go? I just moved halfway across the country and it had come with me. The worst part was how it always stayed just shy of hurting me. Never a bruise, never a push down the stairs, but always just enough to keep me off balance. Once, it stacked all my kitchen knives in a neat fan on my pillow while I was at work. Another time, it wrote G.O. in condensation on my bathroom mirror over and over while I was out for groceries. It likes to play with my lights. I'll be reading in bed and the lamp will flicker, slower and slower, until it clicks off completely. Then, just as I start to doze, it will snap back on, bright as day, as if someone wants to remind me that I'm never really alone. I started dating a guy named Anthony a couple years ago. I tried to hide what was happening at first. He noticed, of course. He'd come over and the TV would turn on to static, no matter what channel he picked. Or the microwave would start running with the door open, which is physically impossible. He used to joke about poltergeists, until the night his car keys disappeared from his pocket and turned up inside my locked freezer. We fought a lot after that. He wanted me to see a therapist. I went, but the presence didn't care. In fact, it started getting worse. The footsteps became heavier. Sometimes I'd wake up to a loud banging on the walls, only to find a line of muddy footprints trailing from my front door to the foot of my bed. Anthony broke up with me 6 months later. I can't blame him. I moved again after that, this time a modern apartment with security cameras, motion lights, neighbors on every side. I thought maybe the newness would help. But on my first night, I came home to find all my furniture rearranged. Sofa blocking the door, chairs stacked in the hall, my mattress leaning against the window. Nothing broken, nothing missing, just displaced. Like someone wanted to remind me, you can run, but you can't hide. Sometimes, late at night, I'll feel him sit on the end of my bed. The mattress dips, and I feel a weight, cold and heavy. I'll freeze, breath caught, waiting for something to happen. He never touches me, never speaks, just sits there, unmoving, until I finally force myself to turn on the light. By then, the weight is gone. I once asked a psychic what to do. She listened, eyes wide, then told me, "You have a passenger. He's attached to you, not to a place." She tried to give me a charm, some kind of pendant, but when I wore it, it cracked in half after a day. She never returned my calls after that. I've learned to live with him. I talk to him sometimes, ask him to please not scare my friends or co-workers. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. He's ruined job interviews by turning off my phone alarm or erasing emails before I can send them. Once, at a dinner party, he made all the wine glasses explode at the same time. My friends don't come over anymore. I still get scared, especially when I move somewhere new and he's there, waiting before I even unpack. There are nights I think maybe he'll finally cross that line, slam a door on my fingers, push me down the stairs, set the house on fire. He's never hurt me, but sometimes I see things out of the corner of my eye. Shadows with fingers, faces in the reflection of the TV that aren't mine, my own voice echoing back from the hallway when I know I'm alone. It's almost worse, knowing he never does anything truly evil, just enough to make me jump, lose sleep, question my sanity. I wonder if that's what he wants, to keep me guessing, keep me afraid, to keep me from ever feeling at home. Last month, I moved again. Smaller place, quieter town. I've stopped telling new friends about him. They wouldn't believe me anyway. The first night, I woke up to all my shoes lined up in a perfect circle around my bed. In the center, my favorite photograph, my parents and me at the lake, torn in half, but carefully taped back together. I laughed, because what else can you do? I don't think he'll ever leave me. Maybe someday he'll get bored and find someone new. Maybe not, but I'm still here, still moving, still hoping for a good night's sleep. And every time I hear footsteps in the hallway, or see the lights flicker for no reason, I tell myself, if he wanted to hurt me, he would have by now. But the not knowing, the feeling that one day he might. That's the scariest part of all.